I had more requests to cover the Helios 300 and more suggestions to purchase this over the laptops that I have been reviewing that feature the same specs, more so than I have seen on anything that I have covered on this channel in 2 years. Out of the last 4 1660 Ti 15-inch laptops I've covered, I have purchased all of them, including this one here. So, is this as good as everyone thinks it is? Let's find out. Inside our 2019 Predator Helios 300 is the i7-9750H, the 1660 Ti. This is the max performance 80-watt GPU. We're running dual channel RAM, 16 gigabytes total at 2666. For storage, we have a 256 gigabyte NVMe. We also have an empty M.2 as well as a 2.5-inch drive. Each M.2 slot has its own aluminum cover with thermal pad connected to it, and the 2.5-inch drive will come with the necessary rubber caddy and ribbon cables for your installation. The network interface card uses the killer 1550i on top of a Intel 9560, and the battery is a 58 watt-hour. On our Optimus equipped laptop, realistically expect about 3 hours. Now this is not gaming, but this is just doing typical Skype, emails, watching some videos, just normal things that an individual might do that are not associated with gaming. The weight of our Predator comes in at 5.1 pounds, and it is built very well considering its price. We have an aluminum lid and aluminum deck with a plastic bottom panel. This is definitely top-notch build quality at $1,200. On the left-hand side, we have a lock, the exhaust, the barrel power port. Very challenging to plug in our 180-watt PSU here. Just a heads up. The LAN port, 2 USB 3.1s, and a combo headphone and microphone port. In the rear, we have exhaust only. Though blue heat sinks are not anodized, this is painted. And on the right-hand side, we have a USB-C. This is not Thunderbolt 3, a single USB 3.1, a mini display port, HDMI, and more exhaust. Opening our Helios 300 with one hand could not be easier, and the plastic touchpad is very smooth, and it uses precision drivers. I did have a little bit of hiccups here at first, but upon doing a fresh installation of their operating system, everything seems to have smoothed out and is working very nicely. The keyboard felt great to type on. We have a numeric pad, and the aluminum deck is very rigid. But beware, the surface temperatures under load can get close to 50 degrees Celsius, which can get a little uncomfortable. The power button is subtly located on the top right-hand side. There is no Windows Hello on our Helios 300. It sure is nice to have displays like this that are essentially the new standard. Full HD, 144 Hz, 3 milliseconds. The panel number is AUO82ED. 97% standard RGB, 75% Adobe RGB, coming in at around 300 nits. What's not too standard, however, is the backlight bleed. Backlight bleed on this was very noticeable upon immediately firing this up, and upon further research, this seems to be pretty common with this particular laptop. But at least we have a webcam and microphone located in the right spot. Our 720p webcam and microphone are located at the top of the bezel. Keystrokes, not picked up too poorly, and maximum fan speed. It's kind of nice. You hear this for a split second, it thins itself out, and now you can still hear the sound of my voice, so it does a good job of canceling out ambient sounds. Nice job, Acer. So our Predator Sense proprietary software is responsible for overclocking the GPU, running the fan control, and everything else about this laptop that makes it as great as it is. This is the absolute bloodline of this machine, and without it, this laptop is dead in the water. Let me explain. We have a factory undervolt of -0.125. Without Predator Sense, that is gone. We have an XTU profile, extreme tuning utility, baked into the software, and that is what's giving us our undervolt. If you ever put this machine to sleep for an extended period of time and you wake it up and that undervolt is gone, just reboot your machine and it will be back. Furthermore, that turbo button that increases our decibels from 45 to 55, it also adjusts our clock speed of our GPU, but it doesn't change the wattage, and it gives our CPU 25% more wattage to work with. That's all tied to the turbo button, And without Predator Sense, that button does nothing. It is dead. You can push it all day and it does not activate. That makes tuning this laptop extremely difficult. When you have software like this that is in charge of not just the undervolt, we can get by that, but it's also in charge of the wattage being drawn from the CPU while simultaneously overclocking our GPU. That means anytime you try to make changes, let's say in the MSI voltage curve editor for your GPU, and you try to save that, it will be overridden as soon as you go from automatic to turbo profile, or vice versa, which means you're going to have to Alt-Tab out, go back into MSI Afterburner, reset, reapply your curve, and then go back into it. Makes tuning this laptop an absolute nightmare. Furthermore, when you try to change some of the power limits using throttle stop or things like that, there's a lot of interference with this software. So what I tried to do was completely do a fresh installation on this whole entire laptop and try to use this without Predator Sense. And I can tell you, it's not that fun to do, okay? You have no more dedicated fan curve, which means the laptop's gonna be very quiet, but making those adjustments with Predator Sense, which would ultimately be ideal because we wanna be able to max out that fan, it's just not there. And it makes tuning this laptop nearly impossible. And as a result, it's going to run pretty warm. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's some stats that we're working with. We're on BIOS 1.04. We have an ambient temperature of 73 degrees Fahrenheit. The GPU will begin to thermal throttle at 87 degrees Celsius and will power limit itself past 80 watts. The CPU thermal throttle limit is set to 92 degrees Celsius, and our power limits of our CPU when not using turbo mode are 56 watts, and it will do this for about 30 seconds until it hits the second power limit of 45 watts. It's at that point that it'll maintain that power limit should it need it, even combined with the GPU. When using turbo mode, instead of 56 watts, we get 80 watts pulled for the first 30 seconds, and then 56 watts pulled after that, should it need it, even combined with the GPU. Now I'm about to show you 6 different scenarios for one game, and that's Battlefield 5. This laptop games just as good as any of the best 1660 Ti laptops do out there, including all the ones that I have recently covered. There's no shenanigans going on with this laptop. Spending 20 minutes on gaming benchmarks just so you can see what you've already seen, this laptop plays games very well. But we need to know what's going on with power limits and behaviors, and knowing full well that tuning on a machine like this is not something that's going to be ideal for 99% of the people out there. So let's see what happens when we go with auto, turbo, liquid metal, various situations like that, how the thermals are performing, what kind of decibels are we getting, so you can kind of know what to expect under a traditional worst case scenario. So Battlefield 5 with the auto fan. Non-turbo profile here, we will get 90 degrees on the CPU and 80 degrees on the GPU. I have seen this creep up a little bit above that. This is no different than running your laptop without Predator Sense at this point. Now, should you wish to use the MSI voltage curve editor, you're going to drop the CPU temperature by about 5 degrees and the GPU temperature by about 5 degrees. And you're actually going to lower the decibels down to 43 dB. But a fair warning there is it will trigger a little bit higher decibels and you'll get quite a bit of fan fluctuation here. Keep in mind when you activate turbo mode back and forth, it's going to completely override the voltage curve editor and you will actually have to Alt-Tab out, reset it, and reapply it in order for it to work again. Now, my personal favorite way to use this laptop and the least likely way that you're going to use it is with liquid metal on the CPU only and absolutely no tuning whatsoever. That gave us 80 degrees on both the CPU and GPU respectively. Decibels were at 43 dB at this point, and overall it was a wonderful experience from a gaming standpoint. Now back to stock thermal paste, but with turbo engaged, we get a CPU that's going to average around 85 degrees Celsius and a GPU that will run at around 70 degrees Celsius, but trying to use the MSI voltage curve editor in turbo mode drops our CPU temperatures to 80 degrees Celsius and the GPU to a chilly 60 degrees. This was a very nice thermal experience, but also very loud, and once you were to activate the non-turbo profile, that voltage curve editor was gone. And then turbo mode with liquid metal on the CPU only, but no tuning, gave us 75 degrees on the CPU, 72 degrees on the GPU. Once again, turbo mode, 55 decibels. Now, the idle fan acoustics of our Helios 300 are a little bit higher than I would like to see, coming in at around 34 decibels. Many people have already complained to me about this who have purchased this recently, and I can confirm it does idle up there pretty high. Now, this is something that could be addressed in a Predator Sense update. That would be great. Both fans are idling at over 2,000 RPM. You can bring that down to 1,500, right? Even when I had liquid metal on here, the idle was the exact same. Now, the problem I have with this is not that it can be addressed. I think that's great. It's that we're at the mercy of Predator Sense for this laptop to work at its best. All of the cool things that it does with maxing out the fans, with giving us a 25% wattage boost to the CPU, with the overclock frequency of the GPU, all of that is controlled by Predator Sense. If we get an update on Predator Sense that isn't working up to our like, if we get Acer to perhaps no longer service Predator Sense because this laptop is end of life, then what? This laptop is only as good as the software that's behind it right now, and that's not something I can say on a lot of laptops that I've covered. The enthusiast side of me doesn't like it. The kind of nerdy tech guy side of me is kind of like, good job, Acer, you really made all-in-one neat solution to control your laptop with software. Hopefully it just works all the time. So with all of the acoustic talk out of the way, how does the average audio sound? Have a listen. Our BIOS is very basic and locked down as usual per a gaming laptop that does not allow overclocking. Here's my final thoughts. The pros. Built very well. There's plenty of storage upgradability with two M.2s and a single 2.5-inch drive. Inside is very accessible, and overall it's a very easy laptop to work on. Our laptop is undervolted out of the box. It performs very strong as a result, and all of the power limits are set very well considering the thermal limitations and capability of our Helios 300. Now onto the cons. This is not a tuner-friendly laptop. We are at the mercy of Predator Sense and its updates. We have poor idle acoustics at this time. These are notorious for having backlight bleed, and the 6-core CPU is typically hot. There's also a lot of bloat on our Helios 300, and I highly recommend doing a bloat-free installation of Windows. Folks, this is a very good gaming laptop. If the idle fan acoustics are brought down a little bit, I think it's going to suit a lot of people just fine. Those that want to tune and try to get more out of this machine, it's probably not for you. And I am a little concerned about the future of software updates, mainly Predator Sense, and how it's going to affect the actual usability life cycle of this machine. But other than that, it's pretty darn solid. And check the description below because I have a lot of details in there that I think you're going to find useful. So I think that's going to about do it. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the review. Thanks for watching.